Oh my god. It's so hot.
Hello everyone and welcome to Insights, a segment on Daily Dose Plus. Today we're here to talk about a very important issue. It's an issue that has sparked a lot of discussion and debate, and it's with regards to the recent judgment made to remove the clause 14 from the election bill, which has left people frustrated and wondering why. This clause states that the diaspora, giving them the right to register to vote in elections. We're here today with a very impressive panelists to discuss this issue. We have Said Matija with us, who is a researcher specializing in governance in the Gambia and other key areas. We have Omar Njai, who is an economist, a public fair analyst, and someone who understands the financial contributions of the diaspora and also their role in national development. Thank you for joining us. We have the Nene Frida Gomez. She is a democracy and human rights activist. She speaks for women across the country, and she's also been very vocal about the inclusion of the diaspora in elections. We have Honorable Modu Lamin Biramba, who is a member of Parliament, and he's here today to help us understand the decision behind the National Assembly's position and also to provide us with some context. I welcome you all and thank you very much for joining us. So we can kick into the discussion. What was clause 14? Why was it rejected? And what does this mean? Can you give us some context, Mr. Ba?
Yeah, thank you very much, Aisha. And I will want to seize this opportunity to say Assalamu alaikum to my fellow panelists in this important discussion. Before going further, I just want to make my stand and make it very clear. I am one of the National Assembly members in the Gambia who have been advocating about diaspora voting, and I still stand to that. Whatever decision is made by Parliament is Parliament, but as a member of Parliament who really understand the importance of diaspora voting, I still hold on to the need and also the importance of having the diaspora have the right to vote, as been stated by our constitution. Because I've been listening to so many interviews, even though I wasn't around during the time of the voting, because I traveled officially to represent the Gambian Parliament in a very important meeting in Tanzania. But when I saw the decision, because I was also following online, I was like, what are they really thinking? And the most unfortunate part was even to the extent of the guidance from the technocrats, that is the executive, through the Minister of Justice and also the Attorney General. I think coming up with that argument of Section 88 is not very sufficient. And the truth of the matter is, like I always say, as long as we keep on managing problems, especially in this country, we will never solve them. And this is actually what is happening right now. If that was the case, this bill was to be introduced in Parliament or even introduced in Parliament since 2021. And since then, what have been done? And if you look at the bill didn't just come to the Parliament just like that. It came through a process as required by the law of the Gambia. And I believe consultations were made. And to also make it very clear here on this platform, this bill was not a private member bill. It was a government's bill, meaning it was drafted and prepared through the Office of the Attorney General, Minister for Justice. So they knew exactly what is supposed to be done. And that is why part of the draft bill, it was included that the diaspora should be given the right to vote and understanding the importance why it should be there. So now it is to Parliament or for Parliament to decide, and which happened. And unfortunately, we come to realize that Parliament didn't do the right thing, I will say, as a member of Parliament, because as far as the Constitution is concerned, especially Section 26, if I can still remember, Section 33, and even Section 38 or 39 of the Constitution, made it very clear that as far as you are a citizen of the Gambia, you have the right to vote based on the eligibility or the criteria that are put in place.
And we will definitely dive into that more as we go into the conversation. But now, for the sake of our listeners and those that are looking in, what is Clause 14 in the election bill? It was a clause that was guaranteeing Gambians living abroad that they could register and vote in national elections. It's based on the Gambian's constitution, which already states that every Gambian citizen has the right to vote. And then also with the ruling of the Supreme Court in 2021, where it states that this includes Gambians that are living abroad. So I think that this has definitely sparked a lot of debate where people that are in the country, but then also folks in the diaspora who are the key stakeholders in this, and those are the ones that have been deprived of this democratic right. It's left them confused on why are we being targeted? What is the issue behind this? Why was this voted in the National Assembly overwhelmingly to remove it? What are the reasons behind this? What do we think that has caused it? Nene.
Okay, thank you very much, Aisha. I'm very honored to be on this platform with my honorable brothers, who I'm so familiar and used to and love so dearly and look up to. And of course, so honored to share this platform with you, at least the second time meeting and having an interaction, honestly. And I'm not taking it for granted. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Also want to take the opportunity with you to wish everybody happy International Women's Day, which, we celebrated the date yesterday. But I've always told people, this celebration should be every day, every minute, every hour. But of course, we appreciate a day dedicated for women. So everybody wishing you well and just trying to affirm to women that you are enough as you are, you're beautiful, you're, capable, you're strong, you're bold. Keep being you, keep being the woman.
Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you for giving the opportunity. So now, the question of why. For me, I cannot take away the political will. It's all shadowed, it's politics, because apart from politics, this discussion of the Constitution said this, the Constitution said this clause said that, we all can read and write, at least most of us, especially us that are having the discussion here. And we know what the Constitution says. We know what they are also hiding behind, trying to confuse. And like the Honorable was very, very nice to use the word like, it's incorrect. For me, I'll say it's misleading. They're really trying to mislead the population. It is very, very clear. If we believe that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the Constitution clearly says, once you are Gambian, you are entitled to certain rights and responsibilities. So why would the same Constitution say, I am the biggest power, and I'm giving you this, but then come back to say, oh, no, I'm reducing this, or you're not. So, purman nahati bida fabari. And I guess we all need to go out there and sensitize the people to say that they're just misleading us. But the way they're trying to base their arguments, it's baseless. It's all politics, and nothing else.
And I think, I am certainly not a lawyer, and I don't think we have any lawyers here, but I think that even as a Gambian citizen, trying to get an understanding of why this decision was made, right? Because in the Constitution, as you've mentioned, it states that all Gambians have the right to vote, but then I'm not sure if it specifically specifies where those Gambians need to be, but we had the ruling from the Supreme Court in 2021 that said that this also includes Gambians abroad. I think one of the arguments that have been made for why this clause was removed was due to the logistical challenges and the fear that it may contradict the Constitution. But I am not a parliamentarian, and I'm sure that parliamentarians are very experienced and know what they're doing. It should be the reality anyway. So why was it removed? You've mentioned that it could be due to political reasons. What are your thoughts on this, Mr. Nyang?
Before you come to Nyang,
Yes.
let me just piggyback when
Yes.
you mentioned like you're not a lawyer in regards to legalities. Now we have gone to the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
right? The highest arbiter of the rule of law.
Yeah.
And they are mandated in terms of interpreting the law. The Parliament makes the law, and then the Supreme Court are mandated to interpret where there are disagreements. And they have looked into what the Constitution has said and interpreted it and said, if you tell the diaspora you cannot vote because the Constitution says it, the Supreme Court is saying, no, you're wrong. They've interpreted clearly that depriving them to vote, it's a violation of their constitutional right. So we don't even need any legal interpretation here. It's just a matter of implementation. But the implementers don't have the will to do it. It's as clear as that.
And
Thank
one
you.
of the arguments have also been that it's due to the logistical challenges that it comes with to allow the diaspora to vote. Maybe you can also give us some insights on your thoughts on all of this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I think this discussion is very important, and it's not the role of the Parliament to think about logistics. Their role is to create a law. And if the Parliament were to be bona fide, they will do as prescribed by the Supreme Court. And what happens next is an operational and logistics arrangement that is beyond the mandate of the Parliament. I believe and I feel that we need to go back and look. We have created a Parliament that is not there for the interests of the greater good outside of partisan lenses. Whatever they decide at the Parliament, it has to be gray, yellow, or otherwise. And that is to the detriment of the greater good of society. Unfortunately, the caliber of people, I'm very sorry, my brother, but the caliber of people we have sent to the Parliament is the resultant effect of what we're getting out of the Parliament. And I'm not only talking about integrity and scruples, I'm talking about their intellectual capacity. And that is the biggest deficiency of this Parliament and the one previous to this one. And honestly, the way to change it is for the people who are sending parliamentarians to Parliament know that we are not looking for a popularity contest where someone is well known in their communities or localities. We're looking for functional literates who can do something that will be beneficial to the greater good of society, and their decisions will not be politically driven or emotionally driven, despite the fact that they are taken there through a political process, because they swore and they took an oath that they will be loyal, they will do what is to the best interests of not only the area that voted for them, but society at large. And they have failed, and they have failed miserably and woefully. And when I heard or when I saw the news that came out, I was not waiting for the diaspora to come and show their grievances. It was us, the people who are living in the Gambia. We should have been the ones out there that show our grievances, because the goose that lays the golden egg for us and is making life at least a little bit easier relative to the difficulties we're going through as a country, they haven't been shown or given their fair share. Yet still, all of us just fold our hands and it's your fight, fight it. It's embarrassing, it's shameful, and this battle is not the battle of the diaspora. It's the battle for the dignity of the Gambian, irrespective of where you live, Gambia or outside the Gambia. And I do hope, after what has transpired, there should even be pressure to move the second reading way beyond the time prescribed by the government, because the clock is ticking, and I'm pretty sure they will back down, they will pass the law, then logistically we'll have a problem to implement, and it becomes a zero-sum game. So we should be smarter than the very people who are trying to play us and tell them, we see the game and we're going to beat you to your game. And the only way that will happen is through pressure.
You bring in some key points, especially with the role that we play as the ones that are in Gambia on the ground when it comes to responding to this and when it comes to advocating for those that are in the diaspora. I will say that we've had some key reactions from civil society organizations. We have the Election Watch Committee, EWC, and HRC, which is Gambia's National Human Rights Commission, have also talked against the vote. We have Gambian Participate, State and also EFSCRJ that have spoken about this. Said Matijao, I know you don't like to say that you are a civil servant, part of civil society in that sense, but you are very much involved in civil society's day-to-day and their operations. But as an academic, how do you see this, and how do you analyze it from that standpoint?
You know, for me, I think this, thank you again for the invitation. It's always an honor to be in the same platform, you know, with Mr. Nyang is my uncle. I call him Uncle Nyang. All of them, Nene, sister, and Honorable, we've been in the civil society space, and now he's there. So it's the same, and you for the invitation. I mean, I think for me, the question of diaspora voting, you know, should not be just looked at, you know, from what just happened, but it should be, at least we go back in time. Like he said, diaspora has been contributing immensely in the economic, through remittances, but not only remittances, but through their also, you know, expertise. We've seen that, especially around the time of Jammeh. When you talk about the struggle, you talk about the diaspora. And fortunately, I wrote my master's thesis on the diaspora. So I've been very much interested in what the diaspora have been doing. And so I look at them as one group of people. You know, you have different form of diasporas, even though the politically engaged diaspora, basically internationalized Gambian politics. They not only mobilized their resources for political participation, but they were the ones that basically showed the whole world what kind of human rights violations were happening in the country. Whether you talked about the freedom radios, the kind of radio stations that they had, their media, you know, they were used to be a very influential group. When people here could not talk, it was the diaspora that was doing the talking. And so after the change, the only thing that we could have done for the diaspora is to ensure that their franchise is extended. And of course, we cannot remove the conversation from the logistic and all those different stuff, you know, but when we were talking about reform, I participated, you know, he talked about consultations that were happening. And in fact, for this electoral bill, there were several consultations that were done. And the first consultation, you know, people generally agree that the diaspora need to vote. That's why you find the whole, you know, section within the bill. And even though the 2020 constitution, which also talked about the progressive registration of diaspora, was rejected, we had to go back, but still the idea of diaspora voting was still maintained there. And even the 2024 that we're talking about also talked about progressive registration of diaspora. So for me, at some point, you know, is one lack of understanding or perhaps political calculation on one side that kind of crippled diaspora. And yesterday, you know, I hear people talking about that, you know, the NPP perhaps is fearful that the diaspora belongs to a different political party and they might lose when it comes to the voting. But the issue is we have not really address the question of the diaspora in the Gambia. And it's like a wall of saying, or basically like that. But like Nyang was saying, we all could be the diaspora. Today we are here talking, but tomorrow I can move, somebody can move. And so we are basically disenfranchising ourselves. So for me, this is the issue, and it should not be only limited to the issue of voting. But for me, at that time when we were talking, I was talking about representation. You know, the franchise must be complete. It's not just about vote. And now everybody's talking about the voting. But it should not be that. How do we address the diaspora question? I don't have the answers yet, but I think this should be the question.
And I think you bring in a very important point. I mean, the diaspora, they're not a monolithic group. It's very diverse, but I think regardless of where you sit, you should have the right, the fundamental right to vote and to be part of democratic discourses. And I think one thing that we should also observe is that when we think of the diaspora, it's not necessarily just people that are in the global north. It's even people in the global south, whether you're a Gambian living in Guinea-Bissau, or you're a Gambian living in South Africa, or you're a Gambian living in Senegal, you're still part of what we would call the Gambian diaspora. And I think a lot of times when we think of the diaspora, and what I've seen in the discourse is that we think of Sweden, Denmark, Norway, America, Germany, those ones. Maybe they have the economic power, but the diaspora, by definition, it's people that have cultural, economic, emotional ties to their country of heritage, right? And that's why they should also have a say and they should have a right to vote. You look at Gambia's migration history, why did many of them immigrate from the Gambia from the first place? It wasn't necessarily because they wanted to necessarily leave their families and leave what they know. We don't have a lot of expats that go to different countries. No, they're going and they're hustling, as we like to say, you know, and they're contributing back to their countries. They're making sure that they are very tied to their countries. They're making sure that they do not lose their heritage with their countries. I am a product of the diaspora, being born and raised in the diaspora, having my family, my mom and dad, who have made a very active effort to make sure that I speak my languages, to make sure that I know my culture, to make sure that I come to the Gambia every year, and to the extent that I'm here today living in the Gambia, and that's due to that diasporan experience of them knowing that they had to leave to give me a better life, to give me education, to me now being able to come back to my country and contribute. So I think of my mom, I think of my dad, I think of my aunties, I think of those during 2016 when Jammeh didn't want to step down, the sleepless nights that we had, the worries, being worried about their families, being worried about the state of the country. I think about those people who were pivotal, who spoke up. Even during the Jammeh era, we saw the newspapers that we had during that time. We couldn't speak on the ground, but they spoke for us. And now we're saying that you don't have the right to vote. You talked about the consultations during the elections bill. I mean, any policy, any legislation, any law needs to be driven by data, right? And the data suggests that this is what the people want. We have consulted the people. We've done all of that work. We've invested time, money to get this clause, and now we're saying, let's just remove it. For what reason? And I think that's the question mark a lot of us ask. Why was this removed? I know that we've given our reasons to that, and also what can we do to make sure that we get the clause back and that we stand up for the diaspora. What can the average Aisha or Nyima or whoever do to make sure the diaspora is represented? Because in all of this, you can feel very powerless. You can feel that, you know, where do I stand? Where do I belong? What can I do? And you make the important point of we need to be the ones that are in the forefront. But how do we do that? Do we go on social media and talk? Yes, it's good in terms of we can inform people, but how can we translate that now into action that's going to lead to change?
I think that's a very good question,
Yeah.
Especially what we can do now. For me, I believe it is not even late, because currently we are on the consideration stage of the bill, and it's lawful as members of parliament to rescind that decision and bring it back. I just want to seize this opportunity to implore my fellow honorable members to reconsider the decision that is being requested by the Gambian people. Mr. Njai made it very clear here. Gambians living in the Gambia should be the ones that do the fight right now. And that is the fact. Because if you look at the situation here, if you talk about the diaspora, especially Gambians in the diaspora, is anybody beyond the territory of the Gambia? And immediately, if you are outside Gambia, now you are a diaspora individual. But looking at the entire situation right now, what is happening in Parliament, like I said, the consideration stage, we can rescind the decision and bring back that clause and see how best we can put it in order. Because a lot of things have been availed during the course of the discussion, during the course of the debate. One of the things that we said here, as parliamentarians, we are lawmakers, we are not interpreters. But the interpreters also came out and said that diaspora have the right to vote based on the case that was being established. That I think it was the BB Davos case. So this is something that is evident that right now we really, as parliament, cannot mislead the Gambian people. And also I will urge the Attorney General and Minister for Justice to also do the needful. Because I can remember we had an engagement with personnel from the diaspora, that is Professor Fall and co, with the National Assembly members. We had a very fruitful dialogue, and he provided data during that session. The number of Gambians that are living in, let's say, northern part of America, Europe, and other parts in Africa. You come to realize that it is very important to consider these people. Because at the end of the day, whatever decision that we are going to make or we are going to take, said, let me also inform you as a former civil society organization, whatever activist. I can remember the diaspora, we are the first people that came out and asked the opposition by then that form a coalition in order for you to defeat Jammeh. And to be honest, I can remember that meeting that was organized in Senegal, Dakar. I was there. And with many political party leaders that are here in this country, knowing what happened that time, including prominent party leaders. They were there in that meeting in terms of coming together, bringing up the idea, even making sure that it is on our front pages on newspapers, that Diaspora requested for the Gambian oppositions to come together, form a coalition in order to defeat Jammeh, and it worked. So in that regard, we cannot just sit down here today because we are in this position and knowing that this position is not permanent. And understanding also that we are in parliament to make sure that we make progressive laws. Mm-hmm. And I believe this is one of the most progressive laws that we can ever make as far as our parliamentary duty is concerned. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it is very important, to be honest. I believe, like I said, if anything is to be done, I am also informing anybody who is watching us right now and also the parliamentarians that it is not too late. We can go back to parliament during the continuation of the consideration of the bill, because it is a bill. It is not the diaspora bill. Mm-hmm. It is the election bill. Yeah. So part of the election bill, there is a clause that is there to address the issue of diaspora voting. And parliamentarians feel that, according to some of the members that have engaged, that yes, this is what the minister advised us. Yes, this is what the minister advised us. But are you making the law for the minister? Yeah. And this is my biggest question. Are you making the law for the minister? Sometimes ministers come and mislead us in parliament. I can say that openly. And it has been happening so many times. Because a clear manifestation is what happened during the budget session. The constitution says 60 days before, and it was us parliamentarians through a private member bill by the member of Upper Salu that came to parliament and said that the time or the duration of the budget session should be at least be widened so that members can have the required time. If we can take that as a reference, the minister, what he did, he came 15 days after. And the argument was, I wanted to assure the parliament that we were able to secure the funds to increase salaries. Now, as I am talking to you, we are having even problems to pay those salaries. No,
but you bring up some.
So I'm bringing things so that we can be more clear.
Yes.
Like the saying goes, success can only happen when our dreams are bigger than our excuses. And I can tell you, as a parliamentarian, parliament have no excuse about what they did to the Gambian people.
You bring up some very good points, and there's a lot to unpack there. But one thing that I also want to say is that, excuse my ignorance, but for me, this was news. I'm an average citizen. I am, just your average Gambian girl. I was, well, not your average, but yes, I was very, yes. But it was news to me that this was even being discussed in Parliament. And what I see a lot of times, what we tend to do is we're very reactive. When things happen, we react. But how could have we maybe proactively made sure that we advocated, we spoke to our MPs, we got buy-in, we go to our local municipalities, we sensitize our people, we put pressure on the members of Parliament? Because for me, honestly, it was a surprise. I just sat one day and then I saw that online. And I'm like, oh, where does this come from? And for somebody who claims to be very passionate about diasporan affairs and who feels very strongly about this decision, I had no idea that it even happened. Why did we not know? And I know the information is probably out there, but I think civil society, politicians, and other advocates who are very much in the discourse and involved with this should be monitoring it and sensitizing the public so that we're able to react in good time and we can be proactive instead of having these reactive reactions. Mr. Nyang.
Once again, I'm not being hard on the parliament, but the parliament has been failing over and over and over again. You cannot rely on the executive to give you guidance, starting with fiscal issues, budget. And it's so sad that all you want to do to date is to have what you call subject matter specialists. You have the right to create an office of the management of budget, whereby when the government brings you a budget, you have an institution within the parliament to scrutinize the whole thing how can you police the police that's policing you? Meaning the government brings a budget for you to pass and you're relying on them for data, you're relying on them for guidance. It defies logic, and this is something that we have been telling the parliament over and over, but no, I guess the status quo, it's fine, because you have parliamentarians that are strange bedfellows with the executive, and that has to be broken. And the only way that will be broken is for some renegade parliamentarians to come out and at least try to establish an institution within the parliament to do the right thing. Because if you guys were doing the right thing, government will not have supplementary appropriation year in, year out for over 5-6 years. They come to you and say, this is our budget. Your subject matter specialists tell you, yes, it's good. 3 months into the execution of the budget, they ask you for extra money. Next year, year after next, you are doing something wrong because you don't have data, you don't have people with the requisite skill set to really advise you, and still, it's fine. Back to the issue of the diaspora. And you made mention that there may be ways and means that we can do this. But honestly, the Wolofs are always keen at saying, "Lu soteti am borom." And in the Gambia today, I mean, I'm very brutal when I'm on TV. You have a speaker, a deputy speaker, who were public enemy number one relative to the Gambia's interests. They're driving the agenda now. But it's not the fault of the people in the assembly, it's the fault of the people who took them to the assembly. But then again, it's the fault of the Gambians for allowing that person that we entrusted and empower to abuse our trust by bringing instruments of repression to be the drivers of the development we want as the Gambia we're trying to build. I was just being emotional, but I can't see what the parliament is doing to really curb the encroachment by the executive. The executive have been encroaching, and it's a slam dunk. All the budgets that have been passed from 2017 to date is a slam dunk in your face. For me, no one is thinking within the parliament because it's happening year in, year out. I'm sorry.
Mr. Njai, I believe you have the right to say what you just said, but I can also tell you that as long as we, the parliamentarians, don't understand that we are the apex authority in this country, given the mandate by the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia to perform oversight functions to all government institutions, including the Office of the President, we will never solve the problems that we are going through right now. For God's sake, you've been seeing me on front papers, on newspapers in this country, talking about even the issue of the recently passed budget. The budget speech was not debated on in this country. And we call ourselves a serious country, and also putting in serious governance in place to run this country. So for me, sometimes I even feel like, why am I in parliament? But also understanding that I am given the mandate to better represent my people in that humble house, making sure that I address their needs and their concern. And for that, I will never relent. I will do the needful. I don't even care what people say, but I will do what is necessary to fix things and make it work.
And just to go back to the removal of the clause and also the vote in parliament, from my understanding, it's to vote. The vote is not saying that the diaspora cannot vote, but it's saying that the diaspora cannot register to vote, right? But that means that, of course, to vote, they will have to travel to the Gambia and then go to registration, and then you come back for presidential. And we have this crazy electoral cycle anyway with like 5 elections in 5 years. But yes, can you please give us some reactions on that?
I think that's why sometimes I said we are not addressing the broader issues as well. You know, when you, because we had this conversation when we were doing the consultations here and there, and then you think about one of the challenges is the kind of system that we have, the marble system, and IEC was arguing that we need to change from marble to paper ballot, but majority of Gambians don't want that to happen, and then the other question is the logistical, because for the move from marble to paper is more on the logistical question. But then the other issue is, making the diaspora constituency. Because I remember that consultation we were talking about even 5 constituencies. For me, it's not only enough for people to vote, But for me, I want them to be also represented. This was my argument, and that is going to be really difficult as well. To how are we going to create this diaspora constituency? Is it just one diaspora constituency, or given that there are those in Europe, those in America, those in Asia, those in Africa, does it mean like we need to create all these different diaspora constituency? Sometimes I feel like we need to sit around the table and discuss these technical issues, but usually it doesn't. And what gives priority is the politics. And sometimes, as much as we are talking about this, the technical issues have to also be brought, on the table. But for me, usually, I always like to hear what people are saying, and we ask them questions about this during the last Afrobarometer survey. And then you see that 70% of Gambians want the diaspora to be registered, to vote in the election. But then when you ask them whether representation, in terms of representation, people are divided, 44, 43, in terms of that. And sometimes the argument is like you cannot have dual loyalty in particular countries and all that stuff. So these are the kind of reasons. But that's what the issue is. Even look at ministers. The diaspora cannot be even minister. They cannot be so many things. That's why I said the diaspora question, especially for those with dual citizenship, is not just about voting, and it has to be expanded so that we can put it on the table to look at what are the technical issues, and in terms of the final. Young understand the economics around this more, but those are issues that also are on the table, and how do we address that are critical. But like I also saying, there's one aspect in 2020 we tried to bring a new constitution, and even in 2024 we are trying to bring a new constitution, but of course we know what the debate is. But both constitutions talk about the progressive registration of diasporas. So even what we are talking about, the 1997 constitution we give the diaspora, but all these different constitutions, even if we change it now, here is talking about progressive. What is progressive? So those are the things that for me sometimes I feel we can show our anger and all those different stuff, but eventually we need to also align these different documents and how they're thinking about the very question of the diaspora. It's not just enough collecting money, organizing state of the this yearly meeting that the diaspora have, and the main question that the diaspora is asking now is just to vote. And how do we make that vote to count? And that's why during the consultation we're even talking about even having perhaps creating ballot papers for the diaspora to vote. But these are issues that we have not addressed, and of course unfortunately we can only debate it, but eventually there are people that need to take that decision. But I also agree that it's never too late. I think the parliament can rescind their decision since they are on the consideration stage. So we have an opportunity for that to happen. I am very optimistic. I'm an optimistic person, and this is what I think that they need to do. Just to change it so that we can progressively have them vote, but not only vote, but represented as well.
And we would love to hear your reactions to all of this. And for me, the key thing I really think that we need to take into consideration that's central to this is that we have to be proactive. We're talking about the consultations that happened in 2021. Am I correct?
It's too many. There was one before the 2020 was rejected, and after that was rejected, we have to go back to amend this current bill, so that it could be in line with the 1997 constitution, because the 2020 was rejected. But of course we are talking about 2024 constitution. Does that mean that also parliament needs to be...
No, I'm talking about the elections bill.
The same bill. We did two consultations, and that's what I'm trying to explain, that it was not only one, because it was the first draft that was made was thinking ahead with the 2020 constitution if it was to pass. But when that failed, we have to go back and did another consultation where we have to realign some of the things that we were discussing to what was currently presented to Parliament. So it was like two consultations, one to think ahead and one now to go back to...
And I think one of the things we can think about is what have we done between 2021 and 2025 where we're here today. I mean, the election bill has been on the shelves for quite a while. Civil society has known it's there. Academia has known it's there. The Parliament, the citizens...
It has been in Parliament since 2019.
Yes, exactly. But it's again going back to just that reactive nature of our political discourse and how we avoid that, because it's not just isolated to this issue of the elections bill, but it's a trend in our politics where we are very reactive. And given the capacity, the know-how that we have as a country, we should really move past that, because that's the only thing that can really lead to real progress. But I'll allow you to also come in here and give your remarks.
And I like that statement that we make, our reactiveness when it comes to issues instead of being proactive. We have a body called the Inter-Party Committee. Like you say, this election bill has been being talked about since, I don't know, for so long. Now you ask the question, what have they done? What have they been doing? You cannot just get that bill and it's with the parliament, you sit and recline and wait things to happen like that. It doesn't work that way. And this is the reason why we are where we are, because again, they've not been doing enough, or they've not been doing what they were supposed to do as a body to ensure that people are sensitized enough, pressure is put where it needs to be, so that they will also do the needful, right? So, I mean, there is a need for us to do better. There is really a need for us to do better on that side. And this reactiveness, instead of being proactive, we see it on all aspects. Everybody sits and be cozy and dilly and dallying until a decision is made. Then everybody jumps on their toes. Sometimes it's really too late. I agree. This one we have a little time because it's not like a done and dusted thing. It's still in the consideration state. Like Nyang said, it's not the business of the diaspora to be online and talking and talking and talking. We here need to be on our feet, roll our sleeves, tighten our belts, and do the needful. It has to happen. There is no ifs and buts. It has to happen, and we can make it happen. Now, in terms of the parliament, sometimes I have a lot of bashing when I come online and speak against, their flaws and the ills. Somebody will tell me, oh, you wanted to be there, you're not there, you're angry. that's what you know what I mean? You are an angry woman. You wanted to be there, you're not there, so that's why you are angry. It's way beyond anger. I'm not there, but I'm still flawless. I'm still happy. I'm still dancing and eating. It has not reduced me to less than who I am. You know what I mean? But it's the myopic mindedness. But now, what we have, like the 5th legislature, they have done so many things that you look at it and you just bite your tongue. And like, are you for real? Did you really represent me? And we thought the 6th legislature would be better. At least they will correct certain things. They come in and be like, okay, you guys thought they were bad? Oh, we can do it better than them. That's what they have manifested, And when you say honorable, I have sat on a platform and say you're all dishonorable, respectfully, because not your individual person by your name, but by your action in that honorable house. If you ask me, from when they came into the parliament until now, they have reduced that honorable August body to a bit bottom low. By their actions, by their doings. And anything that has to do with them, duñ dégg xulo, duñ dégg ngiyo, duñ dégg ngayo, aka ñu mëna jubo.
But it's not their fault. It's the fault of us. They are a reflection of who we are at a macro level.
Yes.
So now we can't expect too much from them if we are not holding ourselves accountable as people.
Very correct.
I mean, I have a problem. Today, civil society. There is no civil society body, including Tango, that you can just walk in today and say, can you please give me the legislative agenda for 2025 for the parliament? They don't have it.
Non-existent.
We are not serious.
It will.
No. There's a difference. Hold on.
Okay.
They will have what the parliament gives them. But at no point are they looking at what's coming up next. Can we prepare the citizenry? That's
Ahead.
The role of civil society. In Gambia, civil society has been hijacked. Once again, I'm sorry, that's me, and this is how I talk. Civil society
I'm
has
not
been.
Civil society.
I'm not. No. It's not about you.
They don't respond.
Civil society.
I have to speak for them, but
yeah.
Civil society has been hijacked by, not all over, but vested interests, and mostly these are personal interests. And at the end of the day, it's society that suffers. People are making a living out of civil society rather than civil society impacting the Gambian population. And this has been here since Jammeh, but people have really mastered this art, and it's rather unfortunate, but the greater good of society is not been, even including this FGM that passed. It was a big fiasco, but it was all about people, certain people, not the women who were being cut out there, and it's rather unfortunate. And this is what we see in Gambia, but people like me, I can see through the lenses and see what they're up to.
And you make a very great point, and I know we'll have a lot of reactions on that on civil society. And Said, I'm looking at you, I know you're not wearing your civil society cap today, but civil society really play a huge role in sensitizing the people.
Aisha, do you mind, let me just finish the point I was trying to make before you jump to that, that point.
Yeah.
Now, when you mentioned, I think it was you or Said, talked about, diaspora, the law is not saying you cannot vote, but you have to register to vote. So now, the registration comes first before you vote. And if they're saying that, okay, we lack the logistics, whatever, for you to vote, that's the excuse, right? They cannot be registered because, of course, if you don't register, you cannot vote. And we're saying that is not too difficult to do, but they don't even want to listen to that as well. For them, they just bang on, the Constitution says you have to be registered to vote, and so because you're not registered, you cannot vote, and we don't have the logisticals or whatever. Okay, since 2019, this election bill has been on the table. We've been talking about it. But at any point in time, year in, year out, they go and present a budget. They have not presented a budget any of these years to cater for that to happen. Are they willing? Are they thinking about it? Since 2019, there has not been a year that was factored in the budget to say, you know what, we presented because next year we plan to do the needful to ensure that diaspora is registered so that at the required time they're able to vote. So this is the lack of will I was talking about. You understand? And when it comes to logistics arrangement, the people that took this matter to the Supreme Court, right? They had come several consultations and presented position papers to tell them different options of how they're going to do it. It's documented. So they have little work to do. And of course, I stand to be corrected. Maybe it would have been at no cost to them because they were very ready. Because these are people who are really ready to partake in the affairs of the country that they belong and love and fought for to liberate and emancipate a country. So they came and say, this is how it is. We just give you the roadmap, the position paper, you just implement, execute. That's all you need. They haven't done that. So if you look at, Marty said, the remittances, right? How to call it? You said another thing.
The expert support.
The expert support, exactly. I'm saying it's not only limited to that. The investments and the employment that they create, it's huge. Without them, this lack of employment gap, it will be huge, and it can be disastrous. So that very important sector of our country, you tell them not only you're not important totally. You're only important when we need you. Other than that, you can sit in the corner and wait for us to decide and do things. For me, I call that dishonesty. I call that unfair on that very important people. Like I tell people, I cannot take myself outside the diaspora. Yes, I'm in the Gambia right now, but I can also be a diasporan, because if I happen to travel during registration time or during election time, then I've lost that opportunity to partake. Is it fair? Of course not. Now to only say, okay, you are diaspora because you're outside the Gambia, but you have to travel and come here. That does not take away your diaspora status just because you have traveled to spend a week or a month or a year in the Gambia. It doesn't. So it's dishonesty and it's misleading. We need to be ahead of their game and smell the coffee and know their game plan and walk 10 steps ahead of them.
Well,
I love what you said.
Statistically, we know that over 75% of our diaspora cannot come home because they lack papers. And we know that bulk of these people are going through the back way. So it's very insulting to tell people that you have to come and register when you know that those people don't even have the right papers to be in the countries that they're in today. So it's a joke.
And is that also, but then also the resources that it takes to come back. It is not cheap coming to the Gambia. A lot of them have to literally work for the year to come and enjoy for 6 months, so 6 weeks. And that's just the reality that we're in. We have to take context. I love what you said about smelling the coffee. I think that civil society has to smell the coffee before it's poured into the cup. And that's what's happened in this situation. I mean, I love the fact that we've seen reactions from the civil society organizations that I mentioned before. We have the National Human Rights Council and other stakeholders that are very important in this discourse. But why was it not mentioned before? Why was the public not sensitized to the fact that this was going to happen? What Mr. Nyang mentioned with regards to the civil society, are they really autonomous? Who is setting the agenda? Because this is a key national issue. I mean, this is even disrupting our social cohesiveness. The Constitution is important. Talking about FGM is important. All of the other things that we do is important. But this was key. Why was it missed?
I think nothing was missed. And this is what also people don't seem to, when Parliament does something, people blame civil society. And this is, I say it every time, I say it in most cases. But I told you that the same civil society that released statement those same civil society were part of the consultation from the onset. If we were not interested in diaspora voting or because for us what we want is even beyond that. Even this registration, the election bill is not just about diaspora voting.
Exactly.
We were on those platforms. We were arguing because for us also, let me come here. So for us, our role has been that we have been participating in these different processes, and we are raising those issues from that onset. And I remember when the bill first got to Parliament, even the day that it was ready, we started doing consultation. I still have my media, how many times I went to the radio. Civil society cannot be everywhere, and that should be the other issue. But the third point is, today the National Assembly is alive. They are on the internet. Everybody can access them. They are very open today. It's not only about organized groups that go there to talk about the issues that they want. And the mistake that we continue to do is like thinking that this civil society can hold these norms and say, do this by force. Because this is the expectation that I get all the time. So it's not, so for the lack of education, we've been there. This electoral bill, if you ask Gambia participate, I'm sure they have done education about that. But also, the work that civil society is doing costs money. We're not taking, why are we going to get that money for continuously talking about that? And that's why I'm also saying that this bill has been in Parliament for so long. And in fact, it was one of those bills that were pushed to come to be addressed by this sixth legislature. So it's not a new thing. So it's just now that they are considering these things, that the proposals that many people have put there. And if they reject these proposals, then why would you come and say, okay, what is civil society doing?
But if I may just come in there, I don't think it's necessarily a thing of blaming civil society. But what it is to say is the fact that civil society made a statement after it happened. Some civil society organizations just hours after, the day after. But what I'm also saying that if you're a civil society organization and your niche, your key area is electoral observation, systematic electoral observation. You're observing the elections, you're giving reports on the elections. This is key in that discourse. So what I am saying is that it doesn't take a lot of resources to make a Facebook post or to ask one of the media outlets to post it out that this is happening. And I'm just saying that it's about us taking accountability the same way in which we're saying that parliamentarians must take accountability, the same way that we're saying the average citizen has to take accountability in advocating for the diaspora. We must also, civil society, take accountability of the fact that I agree there should be accountability.
Civil society should take accountability. But accountability must come from decisions. If at all during the consultation and those things we did not put for this thing to be there, then yes, you can talk about accountability. But we are talking about a proposal that was put, proposals that we fought to make sure that it is there. I told you about the kind of consultation that we were having.
I'm not saying accountability about that. Accountability about letting the public know. About letting the public know that this was happening.
No, let me finish. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Respectfully.
I told you a bill has a process. He talked about consultation. You see, civil society come at different stages of that. We could have continued to be there. Like this consideration stage, for instance. We could be talking about that, but do we know that today they were going to discuss about this section particularly? Sometimes, we put civil society as like we are supposed to be, yes, of course, we are supposed to be the vanguard of most of the things that we're doing. But there are processes where we engage. And today, when somebody take a decision, for me, that's what I cannot accept, to come and say, okay, civil society should have done that. Because we have done that already that you are talking about. We have been engaging on this. We have been on the radio. We have been in the communities. We talk about electoral bill, generally. That's what we talk about. No specific issues. We talk about the electoral bill. And part of the electoral bill, you have this particular clause. And that particular clause, if these people reject it, now we have to hold those people accountable, not to come and say, oh, civil society could have done that. For me, that's where I disagree in most cases. And where did I miss the boss? How manakala?
You missed the boat. What I was just saying is, I think you guys, as civil society, for whatever reason, I'm not being prejudiced, you believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And in what you're doing, because there's two ways to believe in something. You have a moral conviction, or it serves a benefit. The benefit is not only financial, it can be notoriety, it can be anything. But why is someone devoted to something? I am a firm believer that most of our civil society activists are not bona fide in what they're doing, but it serves a personal purpose. Because they can start the relay, but sometimes it's difficult to pass on the baton or finish the finish line. Hardly do we see a project start to finish that has been well coordinated, well orchestrated, and it's to the interest of the greater good. But we have seen through projects how people continue their sustenance of whatever you want to call it. This is Nyang Jai again. I'm not talking about, this is not
about
you.
this bill.
I'm coming.
I'm talking about what we have done in this bill.
Let's allow him to. Let's allow. He's just giving us context. So
I understand that, and I agree with that. But for this bill, it's a different game. That's what I'm trying. For me, my focus is on that, not the how people perceive civil society.
Thank you.
Okay, Aisha, can I come?
Let's just allow him to finish the point, and then we can come.
All I'm just saying is, advocacy is part of civil society work. And on this issue, yes, you guys have been on the radio or anything, but if the legislative calendar was too close to the heart of the people who are doing this, I think a week, 2 days before, knowing that social media is free, there could have been more sensitization, not about the diaspora issue, but the bill at large at the last minute. That's all I'm saying.
You're saying the same thing that I'm saying.
No, it's very different. It's very different.
I can send you documentation.
But we're talking about this. We're not talking about the clause. We are not saying that civil society could have predicted that this was going to happen. Civil society did not know. No, that is really not what we're saying. So let's just clarify. We'll take that to clarify. What we're saying is the fact that if civil society has had this momentum of resources, time, money, effort on the election bills, sensitizing the people, making sure that the parliamentarians, all of the stakeholders involved need to be in it, IEC, INGOs, you name it. Now we're saying that now that we've had this, you've known that it might come on. Civil society should be monitoring the trends of what's happening in Parliament. Duñ mëna xam exactly lan moy am. Duñ mëna xam exactly lan lañu debate. Well, let me just land. Okay. But what civil society can do is they can say, public, elections, we're talking about elections. Public, you should know that elections are coming up. They're talking about the election bill. I can say from folks that I know in civil society very personally, even during the Masembe elections, I was asking, what's happening with the election bills? What are we doing? Yes, we're going to do, engagement with key stakeholders. We'll talk to key stakeholders. But then, 2 weeks right after, new Amli. So what we're saying is that we all need to be proactive. I was saying as a citizen, excuse my ignorance, that I was not aware of this. I want to know how I can get knowledge so I can also be part of those who are more proactive. I don't want to be on a platform like this just to talk about the issue. I want to make sure that the public knows about the issue before it happens. And we all have to take responsibility in the respective seats that we sit in to ensure that that happens. That's just what I'm saying.
I want to wear my civil society hat.
Okay. But before you wear it, let's allow Mr. Mapa. Let's just allow him to come in.
Because I feel like, we have been, as much as I hear, I hear the same thing, that there's not been proactivity and all those different stuff. You talk about monitoring of the National Assembly. That's why I tell you today, the National Assembly is very open. All of us can monitor the National Assembly without needing even civil society. That's the first instant. National Assembly, they share their agenda ahead. Today you talk about civil society monitoring Parliament. There are civil society organizations in Parliament monitoring. Ourselves, we are there. We have a whole website where we're talking about what is happening in Parliament, all these different bills before they are up, we are putting it there. But we cannot tell
I think we're saying the same. No, but I think you're missing the boat.
You are saying that.
The boat or the goat?
I'm not missing the boat. Because you are saying, when I hear you say, okay, it's not.
I think we can.
It's not disagreement. What you are saying that we should do, that's what we are doing basically.
Okay, but I think,
maybe where we disagree that it's not enough, and you talk about the challenges that civil society is facing.
For me, it's just about let's consolidate our efforts. That's the thing. Let's consolidate. And consolidation of effort is what
talk about that we are not doing it because
but it's not necessarily anyway.
No, it's not an attack.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ba. Thank you very much for your remark. Thank you.
I believe we are taking time on this.
Yes,
because,
we can move on.
What is more important right now is for the people to understand the things that are really happening.
Okay.
As I always say, especially in Parliament, that I believe that in this country, we use spoon to move mountains. We will never react to things until it happens. That is what happened in this country. And this is something that we must stop. And immediately. Sometimes when I speak in Parliament or give my submission, people will be like, lafa arrogant, hamud lu mo def, lafa rew, wala boy banjulla. It's not about boy banjulla. It's about the facts, because you don't expect me to rose in Parliament and start saying things that I have no clue about. Because the fact of the matter, what is happening right now, today, like I said before, it is not too late for Parliament to rescind this decision. And I know we can. Because It's a matter of, for me, I see it as if like the decision that is already been taken is a matter of seeing the reaction, what the people are going to say, and understanding that whatever law we make in Parliament is for the people. To be honest, we are not making any law for Modu Lamin Bah, neither for Mr. Jai or Mr. Said or Madam Gomez. We are making it for the Gambian people. So if we have this understanding, that is why whatever law we make in Parliament, we believe it should be a progressive law. So at the end of the day, now we are saying whatever decision was taken as far as this particular clause, I don't call it a bill because it is a clause within a bill.
Exactly.
There are so many issues that we must talk about. The issue of attestation. These are things that we should discuss to the max in Parliament. Seeing all what is happening in terms of malpractices in our different, let's say, alcalos or sefolus that are issuing these documents in this country. It is more serious and more detrimental for the country, more than allowing the diaspora to have the right to register and to vote. And that is the fact.
Yeah.
But this is not yet been brought in forward.
Yeah.
But who
Because
has the role to bring that forward? And that's what we're
So
saying.
that is why I said,
and that comes back to the proactiveness.
It is
You know, it's a
rather
lesson.
unfortunate. It is rather unfortunate. So
Yeah.
this should be that discussion.
Yes.
It is rather unfortunate that I wasn't in Parliament, and I am not saying this because making people to believe that if I was in Parliament, I would just bring in this argument and allow the Parliament to decide, because I will not decide at the end of the day. But it is my right in Parliament to make sure that I do the needful rather, and also make sure that I bring in arguments that make things work for everybody. Because it's just a matter of convincing each other. In Parliament, you lobby. That is why even the consideration stage, according to the laws, you must write and submit to the chair. We don't have a speaker during consideration stage. We have a chair of the committee of the whole house. That is when the speaker automatically will be changed to become the chair. That is why you will see the speaker will even participate during that process.
And overshadow the whole discussions.
And this is why
And
sometimes
trying to push his agenda over everybody else.
Sometimes this is why when always we speak in Parliament, you will see he will be like, Honorable, please keep quiet. Honorable, that is none of our business. Our business is the people that took us there. And making sure that the right thing is being done. Look, for me, and I always want to implore others, especially my comrades in Parliament, we are not making decisions for any individual. And this comes to everything that we are doing in this country. Of recent, I had an interview with Taranga FM. And a guy called and said, there is this Davos Constitution and Boros Constitution. And I said to that individual, the biggest mistake that we are making as Gambians is when we already see ourselves as if Ousainou Darboe is the owner of the country or Barrow is the owner of this country. What I am telling you, that none of these people are owner of this country more than myself.
Absolutely.
I have all the rights as they do. And if you have the guts to tell me that this is the constitution for this individual, and just look at it broadly, where on earth Ousainou had the right to introduce a constitution in Parliament? That has never happened. But this is the perspective, the notion, and the issue of ego and sentiments in this country. We must do away with that or those ideologies. It is not helping us as a country. And it's all about, bad leadership, Because the fact of the matter is, if we really want to run this country, just three factors. Put in good leadership in place, make sure that good leadership also put a good governance system in place, and unite the people. This is all what we need as Gambians. But like Madam Gomez have said here, the political will is a big challenge in Parliament. Whatever happened in Parliament, we have seen parliamentarians in Parliament that have never said anything since they were elected in Parliament. But when it comes to voting,
for some reason, they know where to vote.
They will come in their numbers. And this is the fact. These are things, these are open secret. Like he said, our parliamentary proceeding is very transparent. It's very open. You go to Facebook, you go to YouTube, you can see what has transpired. But sometimes it baffles me as a member of Parliament, seeing how things is being done in Parliament. Because at the end of the day, whatever decision is being taken by Parliament, I cannot excuse myself.
Yeah.
And if you sit over there, you will say parliament. And I am part of parliament. And I cannot deny you that right to bring in your own view, especially when it is very tangible, when it is very substantial, so that at the end of the day, I should instead even make good use of what you say. But instead, I saw when the decision was taken, even for people to understand who voted for and voted against, there was a lot of confusion because of what? MPs came out talking about things that were not even in line with what was happening. Because like you said, you made it very clear here. The issue is register to vote. Have the right to register to vote. That is what they have totally deleted out of this particular bill. And now we are very concerned. We are very concerned in a sense that we believe that the Gambian diaspora don't deserve this. They deserve better. And at the end of the day, whatever should happen, we must do the right thing. Because if it was passed just like that, trust me, this conversation wouldn't have been a conversation. We should be talking about something else.
Yeah.
But now it is not passed, and you see the majority of the Gambian came out and understanding that whatever law we make in parliament is not about the entire Gambia. It's about the majority of the Gambians. And now we are seeing the reaction from the majority of the Gambian. This should be the language that the parliamentarians should understand. The Gambian people, not only the Gambian diaspora, but the Gambian people, including the Gambian diaspora, are saying that what we did as far as this decision is concerned is wrong. And trust me, we are not in parliament to make any wrong decision, because we believe we are there to make sure that we put in solutions to whatever problems that we have. We accept the problems and we convert it to solutions. This should be our responsibility.
Thank you very much. You make some very good points. And I think my key takeaway is the leadership part, and also taking accountability for it. Saying that I am not somebody who voted in favor of it, but I'm a parliamentarian, and I know that people will be pointing at me, but this is who I am, this is what my role is, and that's what comes with the job. And in the respective seats that we sit in, if you're a leader within that sector, you must be able to take that criticism, you must be able to take that accountability, and it's up to you to go back to your people, translate it into something that's going to create solutions. We're all here, we have diverse perspectives, even my good brother here, we have diverse perspectives, but at the end of the day, we want the same common goal. So we should be able to come to the drawing table and look at the diverse ways in which we can go about it to have a common solution. The parliament, the economics, the advocate, the academic, the average citizen. We all have the same goal, and it's about making sure that we take leadership, it's about making sure that we do things differently. I said it in the previous episode that we had. We were talking about national development, inclusive dialogue, and I said doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result is insanity. So we must also look into ourselves, and for me, I do that a lot. We must reflect and say, what can we do differently? Why is there not a difference? You talk about attestation, very important. The election bill, we should not become distracted. Let us go in now and look at that bill. What does it mean to me as a Gambian citizen, whether I'm in the Gambia or whether I'm in the diaspora? Because what else could they take away that's a fundamental right to me? Something like this, it should spark conversations, but it should also spark actions, it should spark reflection, and we should, re-strategize on how we go about it. It's not to take away from the good work that's been done, because it's fundamental to the fact that we've gotten here today, but we must also look within and reflect and say, something has gone wrong. We must re-strategize. We need to work very closely with our parliamentarians as we have done. But the way we have done it is clearly not successful, because if it was, we wouldn't be here today. And that's the fact. And that's not just on civil societies, with all the stakeholders that are engaged. All of us, we have been very reactive towards this. And yes, the information is out there, but having information out there and not knowing where to go to is different things. We human beings need to be reminded all the time. On your phone, when you have a calendar meeting, Google Dinala, you have a meeting in 15 minutes, your meeting is in 10 minutes, your meeting is in 2 minutes, your meeting is 1 minute, the Zoom call has started, because that's how we are as humans. This is our nature. And all of us need to make sure that we are part of that, so we don't sit here and say, legi mom ñu ne even any minister mun now just attestation. I know it would never happen, but I'm just saying, for example, that's what we all need to do. I know.
Can you allow me to just put emphasis on what you are saying here? And now that takes us to this level of awareness and sensitization, right? It's a whole bill, and that was just a clause in the bill. And it has taken a whole week, getting to 2 weeks of discussing one clause when I'm sure we have several clauses. And I'm sure we'll be hit with so many other surprises down the line, because the other things that we'll expect that it's for the good of the country, a small section might feel it doesn't favor us, it doesn't serve our interest, and we're going to take it out. And we will come back to such discussions. And even though the diaspora voting is not been taken care of, we're going to shelve it a little bit and be talking about other clause. We're talking about the attestation. It's been passed, in as much as there was this consultation and thinking that, okay, we have agreed that we will take it away. You come to the assembly of the floor, they thought, oh, you know what, thinking about that decision, we have rescinded. Now we want to get past it and make it a law. Attestation should work. And in one of them, I said, in this day and age, to fight that, the attestation is the only way forward, 2025, in the 21st century, in this digital, innovative world, it's backwardness as a country. 60 years of independence. Like, seriously? We have done a national registration of birth certificates. What good, what benefit has that served? What purpose? If that is not even trying to solve that attestation issue, then we have a problem. A lot of money has been spent. Now, when it comes to the sensitization, a lot of people are shocked. It's good that the civil society will say, okay, we have done a lot of consultation. We have gone to the radios, we have gone to the television, we have gone in social media. But we all are going to agree here that when it comes to the literacy level, how many people benefited from those sensitizations of what you have said? And that's why they're shocked. Trust me, if we had broken it down to the grassroots to explain to them what is in this electoral bill and the diaspora voting, a part of it, clause 14. And everybody in these provinces knows that they have a son, a daughter, a nephew, or whatever, who is out there, who holds their survival in their hands. And you're trying to deny them that, right? They will not sit and watch it. You know what those people would do? They will be at the back of their representative and say, you know what? We have a stake in this. We understand what this is going to do to our loved ones who break or make our homes. And we need to make sure you also consider them. We need to make sure you give them their dues. You need to make sure you respect them, not only in words, by action. And we all put pressures on our representative. They depend on us because we're the ones who are going to take them back there. National Assembly members yi nii yëpp kenn bëggut a ñàkk a seat boobu noonu parce que xam nga lan la daf leen transform 360 plus 2.
Just one moment.
So you leen fa yóbbu suñu leen waxee ne you know what, if you don't do this thing, then you know what, we are going to face off with you. We're going to wait for you at this point in time. They will reconsider and they will make sure they put the interest of their people that they're representing first than their political parties and their principles. Trust me. So that's where we are trying to say, okay, the civil society, you have done a lot, but you could have done more, then we would not have been where we are right now. We need to do better. It's not a blame game. It's not an attack. You know what I mean? When you talk about civil society in this country,
civil society is not the only stakeholder it's us citizens. It's the diaspora. It is the ones that are looking at the trends. It's the parliament. But anyway, we have a bit of time left. I'll allow us all. Just one moment, please. One moment. So one moment. So it's soon iftar time. We're all fasting. So I just want to give us all just 3 minutes each to give our final remarks, and then we can bring the conversation to a close. But I know that we have a lot of passion. We can go on for 3-4 hours because this is a huge issue. I can
go 5 now. You can civil society.
and you know, this was exactly when I said before we started, you were like 1 hour, I said, bringing together
no, to
be honest, and Aisha, I believe this conversation is indeed very important.
It is,
and I think it is something that we must be having every time.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, as authorities, we must also understand that as far as we are elected or we are representatives, even appointed as government officials, let's understand that we have this contract that we signed with the Gambian people, that is a social contract. And in any social contract, it comes with accountability. Today, I can be very defensive in whatever people confronted me with, saying that you have done this, you have done that. But at the end of the day, as you understand that one thing, the people should be my strength. These are the people that give me the mandate. They give me the power. So my biggest strength as far as my political career is concerned is my people. So whatever they come up with, I must understand them. And at the same time, educate them. You know where we have failed as a country. Let's come to the budget. When it comes to allocation for NCCE, which is responsible for our civil education in this country, just go to that budget allocation. You'll be disappointed. For me, talking about civil society organization, they mobilize their own funds. But this is a government institution that is responsible to create awareness in this country. But when it comes to what is being submitted from the executive for the parliament to appropriate, parliamentarians, you don't even hear them talking about that particular allocation. They just adhere to or appropriate according to what is provided by the executive. This is something that we should look at, because we want a community that is very aware of what is happening. Today, whatever happened, how many people knew that this election bill was coming on this day?
That's what we're saying, yeah.
So many people didn't know. And like I said, the issue of the diaspora or diaspora registration to vote is just one clause, which is clause 14 of the bill. There are so many clauses that people need to know. And this is about election. This is about making decision of who will represent you and how he will represent you. Even the issue of the eligibility to stand for particular positions in this country. I would bring in the issue of not too young to run, because the entire idea is, if I am not too young to vote, I am not too young to run a public office. And that is the truth. So why should I register at the age of 18 and be eligible to contest a parliamentary position in 21 when I am 21 years old? Does that even make sense?
Yeah, you bring
So these are things that are in this particular bill.
Yeah.
These are things that we must also, resolve to see that it is fit for purpose. Because at the end of the day, if we only concentrating on one side, there are so many abnormalities I can say as far as this document is concerned. And to be honest, there were a lot of consultations that we have done. And this is why I always say in Parliament, having consultation is not only having consultation with Mr. Jai, Madam Comments, and Semati, and Honorable Pa. This document, at the end of the day, is here for the Gambian people. Go to even the last person in this country for him or her to understand what is in this law. So that tomorrow it will be better. When it comes to decision making, it will be very easy.
I'm sorry to cut you up,
No,
Honorable,
honest,
but you make some very good points. You're giving, it's like we're in Parliament, some manco field. Thank you very much. We can go to you, Said, for some final remarks.
No, let me clarify that. Yes. I'm not here to defend civil society or say anything, but I also feel like a lot of people don't understand what civil society is doing. Okay. And that's the problem. Okay. And that's why we're getting all this, back and forth. He talked about that.
Is civil society showing people what they are doing?
We don't need to. The thing is,
that's an insult to say people don't understand.
Then if
say
we
that people don't agree, we disagree. But if you say that we don't understand,
right now on this particular bill, they don't understand what we've been doing.
No. That's an insult.
No, it's not an insult.
It's an insult. We don't understand.
We don't understand what we have been doing. That's what I'm saying.
We don't know.
Then there's a failure in communication.
No, so
you are not. You see, the first thing that let me tell
you.
It's my 3 minutes. Let me make my point. They have their 3 minutes.
Yes, you can land.
But I will not sit down here and also allow you to tell me I don't understand.
Yeah, because you're talking about certain things that I am already doing, and then when you come and talk about it, it's not happening. That makes me feel like you don't understand what we are doing.
Where's your visibility?
Okay. Let me tell you what civil society does, and that's why I'm going to conclude it. He raised so many important issues, the issue of attestation. Attestation has been one issue that is also part of this bill that will, for us here, we feel like attestation should be out. But if you ask the people in the rural communities, they tell you that we want the attestation to be there. Because they trust their local leadership, they trust their chiefs, they trust their alcalos, and they want attestation. And why is that? For me, my argument has been on this attestation has been the fact that we need to get people the opportunity to be able to register. Because when you are registering to vote, that's why I'm talking also about the technicalities. Sometimes it's not just about what we want, but what are the technicalities that are involved in all this different stuff that we are engaging in. One, You need an ID card or birth certificate or whatever those things are, but that's not present in the rural communities, because the other reality that we face, and he's an economist who understands that, the rural and urban divide is very glaring. It's there. We are all seeing that in all aspects of our democratization processes, and that is there. And so when you talk about this issue of attestation, at one point, I'll send you also these things that we have done, where you hear people calling on a radio program and telling you that we want the attestation to be there.
So, Said, what can we do as you're concluding and giving your final remarks?
You know,
what can we do?
And I want to focus on civil society.
And
why I'm going to
also
focus,
like what we can do.
I'm going to focus on civil society right now. And that's why I started with the diaspora, that the diaspora was well organized. But since after the change, we don't see that organization as it was before. Today, you are talking about civil society needs to do more. We cannot do more if the resources are not there. Yes, there are different kinds of civil society that Nyang is talking about. You know, people, and it's everywhere that you can find there, people that are just interested in things and that. I'm not going to say that that is not existent. But for people, civil society to be able to move, the diaspora itself also need to think about the solutions that they were doing during the 22 years of dictatorship, how they were mobilizing, how they were raising funds, and through that way they can locally, support civil society, but also to continue to have that civil society there as well. But the bottom line is, we are discussing issues, but these are not issues A, B, and C, or gray and black. These are also technical things that we also need to put into consideration, things that we also need to focus and do. But beyond that, I think for me, my main problem in Gambia has also been, we reduce mostly everything to politics, like he was saying. We reduce everything to politics. Is here, you are there, or you are not there. And those things need to change. And right now, the level of civic education in this country, civil society is not enough. Political parties have a role to educate their members, to educate the citizens as well, just like he mentioned the National Council for Civic Education. But every time, they are the ones that are less funded, and those are issues that we need to bring in so that people can see this awareness raising more. But even Parliament itself, that's why I was talking about the fact that Parliament is today more open than it was before. Because it's trying as much, and through the diaspora support, they're able to make Parliament more accessible to the people through their online platform. People can follow those different processes. But they need to go beyond that, try to explain to people what are parliamentary processes, because sometimes people don't understand that. Yes. So I conclude on that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for giving us, highlighting the nuances and giving us context on that. We'll move on to Madam Gomez.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very, very epic, conversations. And of course, time has become the enemy of everything that is going on right here. But I mean, in these few minutes you're talking about, I wanted to understand this, for lack of a better word, notion of, Parliament is open, is accessible, people can go in. Yes, it is. But this was born out of the change that has happened, which is the effort and hard work and fight of us all. That's why it's not like anybody gave it to us. They were forced, this was forced for it to happen. And yes, people can tap into the opportunities to be able to access more information and everything else, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that definitely can happen. But now this thing of, Mr. Ba mentioned the NCCE, being funded by government, and their budget is very, very meager as opposed to civil society, right? NCCE, yes, the budget is meager. Even if they had given them a lot of budget, luñ leen sant la ñoo def parce que dañ leen jox but fuñ leen ne xool leen la ñoo xool. Civil society ñooy dem ut seen own xaalis, and that's why I feel they need to do more. If they were doing 10, they need to do 35, because ñoom moom seen xaalis ñoo ko utal seen boppa. They're supposed to be independent, and civil society is supposed to be radical, it's supposed to be brutal, it's supposed to be honest, it's not supposed to be sleeping on the same bed with the people that are supposed to be the executive or the politicians and all that. Yes, they can dialogue to give peace a chance. But if they cannot come to a consensus, civil society should and always must be on the side of the majority, the people. You understand? That's what I expect. And this is what is the issue that some people will sit there and say, civil society definitely there. And like Sid was saying here, we don't understand. How can you understand what you don't know? You first have to know. It has to be brought to the outside. You be sensitized. You be educated. Then before you understand. You cannot understand what you don't even know exists or it's happening. So that also we need to do better to provide that awareness and sensitization and education for the people. Now, the issue is diaspora must register, diaspora should vote. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. Now, it's us out here who have access to the National Assembly, access to our parliamentarians, our representative, to talk to them, to put pressure on them, but it has to be organized for them to ensure that, yes, Kumba mungi fi, Samba mungi fele, why terewut ne the Gambianness that the Constitution has given you, right? Anybody has the right to take. And that pressure should be from this minute. We don't have to wait, we have to be proactive instead of reactive. It's possible, it can be done, it must be done, and it has to be now.
Thank you very much for that powerful statement. Mr. Nyang, last but not least.
Well, thank you. I'm a classical disruptor. And if all was well, we won't be diagnosing problems today, especially of the things that you've said, attestation. It's a shame. If all was well, we won't be sitting here talking about attestation. And the commitment of the government is not there, because we know what attestations are used for. Today, if we have a cradle-to-grave record management system where someone, once you're born, whether you're born in Jahali Pachat or Fatoto, you are electronically registered, we will not have a problem of trying to identify whether someone is a Gambian or was born in X, Y, and Z. So I think as progressives, we must all say we have to do away with this, because the negative consequential effects of using attestation towards the suffrage, people's right to vote, and people stealing their votes. And we know that attestation is a means to steal my vote. I will vote, but someone who should not be voting will vote, thereby neutralizing my vote. So all progressives should say that we need to do away with this. And disrupting is very difficult. Living with the status quo is easy. But I think as progressive Gambians, we all need to swallow a bitter pill to say, if we want to create a society that is just, if we want to create a society that's equitable, if we want to create a society that will hold you accountable, we need to start somewhere. And this somewhere means that we will do things, though difficult to many, but they will adjust to it. And regarding to on the issue of the diaspora, it's broader than just having the right to vote, but representation, and not only representation. There are many able diasporans who can come and add value. But today, by virtue of the way our laws are, they either have to lose that or take this. And I cannot blame them after they have implanted themselves in many Western and other countries to just say that, leave everything I've worked for this, especially when the boat is not going anywhere and is moribund. Thank you.
Yeah, you make some great points, and you've all made excellent points. And I think that this conversation that we're having today is just the starting point. It's to sensitize the public, it's to sensitize ourselves. I can certainly say that I've learned something new from each one of you here today, and that's the entire point of it. We do not, as I always say, have the solutions here on the table, but we reflect the society because we're members of society, regardless of, you know, the hats that we wear. So we must go back to the spaces that we are in, and we must tell our people that we need to reinvent. We need to do it differently. Other countries have done it. We're not reinventing the wheel. Our neighbor Senegal has done it. Kenya has done it. Guinea-Bissau has it. Lidulu S. And it's definitely something that can be done. And I think that we really need to look at this issue, as we've all have said. It has become very political, but it's beyond politics. It is a democratic right. It's about representation. It's about you being a Gambian. It's about you being given what is fair to you. I thank you very much for coming on board. And I urge all of our listeners to please learn more about the election bill. This is just one clause for the bill. You've also mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of information that we can find on the website for the National Assembly. You work with Afrobarometer and also the Center for Research and Policy.
I work with many people.
Many people, but anyway, the people in these rooms, you'll follow their handles. The links will be in the descriptions, and just follow what they're doing. Let's sensitize. This is about us, the people. We all have a common goal, even though we have different approaches and opinions. It's still towards the same. So thank you very much for your time. Let's go and eat because manna mahiv legi.